Hello, human peoples. You're listening to the podcast network of Gamefully Unemployed. To support us and gain access to great exclusive podcasts like Fox Mulder is a Maniac, Tom and Jeff Watch Batman, Star Trek The Next Futurama, and our latest show, Spiel Boys, head over to patreon.com/gamefullyunemployed. We do game streaming, movie nights with our patrons every Friday night, and you can even commission your own podcast about anything you want. Literally anything, within reason, and we have to do it. You are quite frankly out of excuses not to go visit patreon.com/gamefullyunemployed. That's patreon.com/GAMEFULLY unemployed, which is spelled like it sounds.
It's exciting. You got your Long Legs poster.
There's a connection, but I'll save it.
All right. There's an obvious connection. Just, Hey, hi everybody. Hey everybody.
Hi.
My name is David Bell.
And my name is Drew Grant again.
Hell yeah. And we just watched Cuckoo. Because, women be burden sometimes. Burden around.
If I were you, I wouldn't want to get hurt even more.
Why did you bring us here?
Your family belongs here.
That's a fucking weird way to put it.
Fuck. Yeah, I mean, spoilers, right? Spoilers for this.
Oh, yeah.
That goes without saying. Drew, thank you so much for being on once more. We just had you on for Long Legs.
No,
we just had you on for, oh my God, so many horror movies coming out. Just had you on for Oddity.
Yes.
You have a Long Legs poster behind you.
Yes. I did that. I swapped out my Oddities poster for a Long Legs poster so I could see how this could be confusing for anybody.
For anybody who is me specifically.
Yeah, not looking at this because I found out these are not visually sent out, but I did put this up for David. Yeah, maybe one day.
One day, and then you're going to have all the posters up. I mean, I got stuff to show off too. And it's like, one day people will be able to see us. Maybe but not today.
Bonus feature is just like us describing the posters that we have in our room.
Oh, yeah. It's not even a bonus feature. I'm not cutting anything out.
Mm-hmm.
Drew, what do you got going on at the start of this?
Oh, yeah.
Do you have anything you want to plug for these fine people listening?
Gosh, guys, I actually do. And I know you guys know about Passion Fruit, which is our creator labor website multimedia project that we're doing for, if you're a creator on the internet and you're trying to make money and make a sustainable living, it's probably very hard because the platforms and the tech companies work against you. So we're trying to form just like a group where people can kind of come in, find resources, find information, and talk to other creators. We also have 2 great shows I want to promote. So it's on our YouTube page, which I believe is Passion Fruit for Creators. I'll double check that, but there's a 4 number in there somewhere. Just look us up. There's a link tree. We have a show called Deep Linkers that has, we just talked to creators around the internet. We also have Reactorverse. It's to specific reactors, like in the reaction space community, who deal with a lot of DMCA takedown bullshit. And so they're like kind of a nice ground zero for a lot of the issues that YouTube creators are facing these days. So yeah, go check us out on all those platforms that I didn't really know the handles of.
Yeah.
Passion Fruit. Yep.
Passion Fruit.
.it, yes.
Fruit.it.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Check it out. It's great.
Mm-hmm.
Second question.
Mm-hmm.
What did you think of the movie Cuckoo?
I'll start by saying this. I walked in like maybe a minute or 2 late because we were busy watching In Dreams on the Friday night hang.
The first minute or 2 is just them getting to the resort.
Yeah, so I got to the part where like she was in the bathroom stall. I would say this is a really good first entry into a mainstream American audience. Not even mainstream. Well, kind of mainstream. It was my AMC. The AMC Burbank had a giant poster of Cuckoo. So this was a very good first entry into like mainstream American horror cinema. Was it perfect? Like, no, but I really appreciated the concept. I really appreciated someone taking a swing on a new kind of monster. Like a new kind of thing. I just thought there was a couple things I would have liked them to focus more on, like maybe one less beat or one less thing.
Interesting. Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, we'll break that down. Yeah, this is for me, a new writer-director.
Mm-hmm.
I had never seen, this is Tillman Singer.
Mm-hmm.
It's got Hunter Schafer, who I didn't know who that person was, but people seem to know who that person is.
Euphoria's Hunter Schafer.
Right.
I think she was in the new the Poor Things guy's new movie. Kind of Kindness. Yeah.
Yeah, it's Euphoria. There's a bunch of people where I'm like, I don't know who that is, but everybody's excited, and the answer is always they're in Euphoria. That's always the answer.
Yeah, Sydney Sweeney, Euphoria. Jake Lordy, Euphoria.
It's got Trevor Goodchild from Aeon Flux in it.
Oh, yeah. Got a lot of those guys.
Yeah. Well, then it's got the ultimate, that guy. It's got Daniel Stevens right there.
Oh, my God. Dan Stevens.
Being a real Dan Stevens type.
Do you know how Javier Bardem goes into roles like wig first? Like he figures out the wig and then he goes into it. Dan Stevens is like that, but for accents.
Yes.
Like
100%.
He just picks the role. It's a big year for Dan Stevens and accents. If you haven't seen Gorilla X
X Kong, yeah.
Yeah, Stand Up Lizard versus Gorilla. Tokyo Drift. If you haven't seen that, Dan Stevens is doing what I thought was an Australian accent, but turns out was just a very energetic British, Cockney British.
Yeah, he's got that new Christian Bale thing going where I'm like, where are you from, Dan Stevens? Because I could never tell based on, the accents you're doing.
He's British, but if you watched Abigail, his big thing, and there's a big reveal in that. I know you guys have. Not to get too off track immediately, but his big thing is he's from Queens, but he sounds like he's about to tell Green Goblin where they can put it if Spider-Man is messed with. So he's always doing a whole thing. But in this, he's Christoph Waltz-ish. I would say Christoph Waltz
German,
Jason.
Right?
He's German, but Christoph Waltz is Austrian, so I think he's getting a little confused.
Right.
It's really good though.
So, all right, I gotta say, I really enjoyed this movie. I do. I'm not like, the hearing that you're like, there's some things I would have changed is interesting to me because I'm kind of glad, because for me, I was just like, we just keep getting these horror movies that I'm just liking every single one, and I like how weird and different they've all been. This one, it didn't exactly scare me, but I appreciate how fucking weird it was. Yeah. I like weird,
I think go ahead. Sorry.
Oh, you mentioned a new type of monster, and I want to talk about that a lot. And the fact that the marketing for this movie, you didn't really know what it was about. Like, I knew there was okay, Dan Stevens is clearly it's a 17-year-old girl at this resort that her family is brought to, and it's clearly like there's some sort of cult here, right? Like there's something going on based on just the trailer, and they highlight him saying something about a new species. So you're like, okay, there's some sort of monster, and Dan Stevens is clearly bad, and this young girl is wrapped up in it, and her family is seemingly in on it in some degree, and that's like all I really knew.
That's not what I got from that trailer at all.
Interesting.
I got that her family was being targeted, because in the trailer they very clearly say your family belongs here, and she looks at them and she goes, "Isn't that a weird fucking thing to say?" Or something like they're clearly, they seem like under a trance or something, like they're being targeted. And I didn't think it was a cult. I thought it was a scientific, like an SCP, kind of like a containment facility.
Right.
So, yeah.
I mean, it's kind of the same. When I say they're in on it, it's that moment, right, where it's like he's saying something terrifying and they don't seem to care.
Yeah.
And so it's like, like the trance, and it turns out it's more of what you were saying, sort of. It's implied that her father is aware of what's going on.
Oh.
I think so, because her father works for him and talks to Dan Stevens kind of like a cult leader in a way, like he's very apologetic. But that's the broad strokes. And it's slowly unfolding, like, what is this about? And it fucking turns out that the title Cuckoo is so way more literal than I thought it was gonna be.
Well, yeah, I mean, just back up for a second. I thought this was also a vampire movie, because in the trailer you see somebody with red eyes glowing. You see this great shot where she's biking, where Hunter Schafer's biking at night, and you see the shadow of her bike, and then suddenly there's a shadow behind her, and it's catching up to her really quickly. And I thought the monster in this was so unnerving, and there was just so much lore I wanted to explore about it, that I guess some of my disappointment in the film was just that we didn't get to see more of what this thing did, how it recreated or reproduced, and the sort of mythos behind what this facility was. We spent so much time of it in Hunter Schafer's POV, but I loved it.
I know what you mean. I mean, what it ends up being is, I guess we'll just say what it is to start.
I mean, can you? I would love you to say what you thought this movie was about, or like what was going on in this, because I left without knowing really what happened here.
I think if we talk about what the elevated horror, what the meaning of it is, there's definitely a theme of men trying to dictate what women do with their bodies.
Oh yeah,
like that's a big part of it.
For sure. But what is the monster? Like, what is it? What does it do?
So the implication is he talks about the cuckoo bird and how the cuckoo bird is a creature that will go into other birds' nests and lay its eggs and force the force the other birds to raise its young for them.
It's like a mimic. This also, I remember watching this movie last night and being like, why do I already know this information? It's because it's why Longlegs is doing cuckoo in Longlegs, because spoiler alert, there's an element of that to that movie. So this is actually Longlegs extended universe, I believe.
Yeah, I mean, fuck it.
Yeah,
love your cinematic universes. Yeah.
This movie might also be in a cinematic universe with his short film and his original feature, which all seem to have a very similar, if from different perspectives kind of thing. So maybe there's just more to explore, like Resolution and the Endless by what's his name, Moorhead and Benson. So maybe there's just more to explore here. But it looks like the demon I thought was a vampire is instead a.
It is okay. So yeah, because we didn't identify what it is. Yeah. It's not specifically a bird person, but the implication is it is a species that is unknown to people, who is some sort of like skinwalker, some sort of shapeshifter. It is in the body, and what we learn is that what Dan Stevens is doing is he's having these people come to his resort that is actually a lab. Again, as you can sort of tell from watching it's like a makeshift lab. Like, again, from watching the trailer.
Preserve. He says it. I mean,
it's a nature preserve, yes.
He's not trying to hide it. It's two things. It's like a nature preserve, and then there's also a genetic disease, like specialty hospital there, which is different than the regular hospital. They have like a thing that's specifically a cover for their specialty program. And I don't think it's skinwalking. I think it is a mimic creature that impregnates women who cannot get pregnant otherwise. So you take your wife there so she can have kids, and the kids just all turn out to be like other kind of creatures, but they're not evil. They just can't talk.
They're weird little freaks. Yeah, they're animals. Yeah. They're like this creature. They're the young of this creature. So
But what's the sister? Spoiler: her little sister is one, and she's fine, except that she's mute. Like, she can understand and communicate.
I think it's a nature versus nurture scenario, right? Where it's like, I mean, that's the idea, right? Because it begins with her like hating her sister, right?
Yeah, so stepsister, half sister.
Yeah, and she keeps saying it's not my sister; it's my stepmother's daughter, or my father's daughter, or something like that.
Yeah, my father's daughter, and the girl and the woman that she's working with at this resort. Let's just back up. She's going to a resort with her parents, her mom, or her dad and her stepmom. She hates it there, and I think I missed the beginning, but it's because she and her mom have separated. Her mom's in America. They are in Germany, it looks like, the Alps or something.
It's interesting because they pretty clearly say her mom has died. Even at the beginning, they treat it like it's almost like a twist in this, which was weird because she gets a message. Yeah, she gets a message, and you might have missed this in the bathroom. Someone says, "Hey, sorry, I couldn't make it to the funeral," in her message. This movie is, by the way, very timeless. Did you notice that? Because she has cell phones, but all the cars are old and all the TVs are old.
I was going crazy here because I knew at one point Dan Stevens was on a cell phone. I think it's a parallel. I think it's like kind of like what's that TV show that came out that everyone loved? Fallout. It's like that, where it's like
alternate
it's a different
world,
alternate world, because you see their recording devices, their answering machines have a text function.
Yeah,
that's text to speak, which I don't think recording devices had back then. But everything is analog, except for at a certain couple points, people have cell phones.
They do have. So if you're deaf, there are text to speak devices you can get, but it seems like you said that they all have him.
Yeah, in the 80s or 90s.
Yeah, the daughter isn't deaf. The sister, she just can't speak, right?
That's what I meant. Yeah. No, mute. She's mute, but they all sign to her, which is also weird, like as if she is deaf, even though she clearly is just mute.
I took years of sign language, and the thing is that there's just varying degrees of a person who uses sign language. And like there's a whole culture issue, which is that schools used to force deaf or hard of hearing or mute people to use their voices, even though they didn't know how to do that. They couldn't hear themselves.
That would be very bad in this situation because of what happens when you use your voice and you are a cuckoo.
Yes, if you are a cuckoo in this, you don't want to use your voice. But so the implication is that like, it seems like the men know about it, but not all of them. Some of them. The cops certainly did.
I think the men know and the women don't. The women who are being pregnant.
No, they don't know. Yeah. They bring them to this resort and basically this creature that looks like a woman, sort of. She's hiding her features. As you see in the trailer, she has to wear glasses and like
Dan
she's
Stevens
wearing a wig.
hiding her. Yeah, Dan Stevens hiding her face and puts her in a blonde wig. I thought that was more of his thing though, because I think they're like kind of hot. Like I think they could be kind of, or at least normal looking. One of them didn't have any hair when you took the wig off, but the rest of them were like
they're
fine.
They're kind of hot. Yeah.
Yeah, they're kind of hot. Yeah.
That's 100%. Yeah.
Can we talk about the effects that they do to you though? Because like what the process is doesn't necessarily seem malevolent, and you can almost see a world in which Dan Stevens is like doing something. Yeah. Or Dan Stevens is giving these people kids, and then like he's preserving this, the species that is otherwise endangered, which is a species that has a really interesting like function, or like the way it operates is really cool. Yeah, and like weird. Yeah.
Well, it shows up. It basically hypnotizes you with its voice. It makes a shrill sound that like it uses in certain ways. Like the way they show it in this is really great, which is that it's a time loop. Like someone like as you see in the trailer, she's in that pool that's like clearly a cell, and the person's walking in, and she runs down to the bed, grabs a slat of the bed, breaks it to make a weapon, looks up, and the person's closer, and then she gets in the bed, runs, breaks the slat to make a weapon, and keeps doing it as the woman gets closer and closer, which is a great idea, I thought.
Yeah. Well, at first I think in the trailer, it just looks like the woman's just appearing out of like she's far away, and then she appears out of nowhere. But when you realize going through the movie, at first you're like, oh, is this a Life is Strange, like that video game where you're like, oh, can you rewind time? No, you're just being put in a hypnotic trance where you feel like you're doing the same actions, because eventually you see what that looks like from the other side. Like people are moving, time is still moving forward, but you are caught in like in a mental time loop, like a cuckoo clock. Yeah. You know?
It feels very animal-like, which is like certain animals are able to do certain things to prey and stuff like that. And so she does that to basically distract or incapacitate the male, and then she takes her eggs and seemingly implants them into the woman.
How? It's so weird.
I know. It's real weird.
I'm not sure if we've ever actually seen what that looks like, because Hunter Schafer then would have had it. I think what she does is make everybody sick. Like she incapacitates the men. The women get sick and throw up. Like Hunter Schafer throws up, everyone throws up. And that's why we're saying women throw up. Maybe it's like a hormone thing. Like he sprays her with hormones at one point. But I don't think that's what impregnates them, because I don't think we ever... Yeah.
She reaches between her legs and gets a goo and gets the eggs. And I assume what she's going to do next, because we never see what she does next.
No,
it always gets interrupted.
We never actually even see the egg. We just see people scratching their legs, and then they start vomiting pretty quickly, and they can choke on their vomit and die. But Hunter Schafer, I don't believe is pregnant with a cuckoo thing.
I think Hunter Schafer, the implication is that she's just in the way. Like she was not, because the idea is the twist is that basically her dad's daughter is one of these creatures, as we said. So like it's like a follow-up almost, like he's bringing her back. They say he's also there to help build a second resort. Yeah.
And the mom does not seem like she's very much in on it. Like the mom has to be sedated, and then we never see her again, which is kind of upsetting. Like she's somewhere she's in the facility somewhere. But the one thing about the cuckoos is they're not strong. They're fast, but I don't think they're preternaturally. Or maybe I guess one point we see her pull like Hunter Schafer's new girlfriend out of the car, but like they don't seem particularly invulnerable. This is probably why they're endangered species.
Yeah,
like,
exactly.
They're just very human in their weaknesses and stuff. Maybe they're a little stronger, maybe faster, and they have red glowy eyes and can hypnotize you, but not if you're wearing headphones. So
yes, which becomes a big theme of the thing, where they realize, okay, you can cover your ears, but the downside is you can't hear, which I thought was a really cool horror idea. Which is like this is what's funny about this movie to me. There's two movies recently that drove me nuts. One is called The Watchers. Did you see The Watchers?
Of course I saw The Watchers.
Okay.
Of course I saw The Watchers. Dave, what would...
The other is Bird Box or choose your movie of like a Bird Box. You know what I mean? The Silence, A Quiet Place. There's so many of these movies now where it's
Hush
like
Monsters.
There's a creature. Yeah. And what's funny is that this movie has elements of both of those types of movies. I think it just does it way better.
Sensory deprivation, like you have to like deprive yourself of
To
a
cover
sense.
your ears, yeah. And then of these forest creatures that you could think there's probably some elaborate lore to them, we just don't really know it. And it just, for me, this really pinpoints what makes horror good, which is that I don't want to spoil Longlegs, but Longlegs is also another horror trope. You just don't realize it.
Yes, I didn't realize it until I listened to your podcast about it, but you're exactly right about what kind of horror trope it is. Yeah.
Yeah. To me, it's all about perspective.
Yep. Yeah.
It's all about who do you start? Who is the most effective or like character to tell the story from the perspective of. And so this is the same thing as like you could tell this story from the perspective of someone who like gets this elaborate lore of what these creatures are. They're like, we have to cover our ears. And that's all in the trailer of like, you got to cover your ears because of the cuckoo. And it would have been a really dumb movie, I think.
Yep.
This is a really good version of that, just simply by rolling out the elements so that by the time you realize that's what it is, you're like, well, fuck it. This is great. Like,
yeah, I mean, like, again, like my biggest critique of this film is I wanted to know more about how these things function, what the purpose is, what the resort was for. Like, my only criticism of this movie, and I heard people say this while they were walking out, everyone was saying, well, you know, but like Hunter Schafer was great, or well, but Dan Stevens was great, which to me says like they weren't satisfied with the how the movie progressed. Mainly because it's such a good promise, and it delivers on another promise, but it doesn't deliver on the initial promise of why are all these weird things happening. It's kind of the Twin Peaks problem, right? It's like, why are the women throwing up? Why are some of them just drinking like a bunch of stuff? Why are people checking into this resort? Who the cop is? I guess we get some resolution on that, but like whose side he's on, what Dan Stevens actually ultimately wants. There's one part where he talks to the women that he works with and he goes, are you still keeping all those secret notes hidden away under your stairs? And I was like, what? Okay. Like, she has the whole story.
That's what I liked about this, because I thought, I didn't think it needed to say too much, because I feel like that's when things fall apart. Is like, for example, that woman. So there's a part where things start falling apart at the resort in the back, and there's like women working there, and Dan Stevens walks in, and basically is like, we have to get rid of everything. Like he knows like the heat is coming basically in this moment, because everything's falling apart. And he turns to a woman and says, "Yeah, you still keeping all those secret notes under the stairs?" She doesn't answer, and he goes, "Right."
So like,
and then
so
he
it
kills
implies
them both.
that like he knows her. Like I guess maybe I'm not even like.
What it implies to me that it's almost like, I mean, they are German in this. It feels like it's like a little Nazi-ish, which is that this idea that like everything's sort of falling apart, and there's all these internal people who are, they sort of know that they might have to go to the authorities. Like maybe the impression I got was that woman had. Because the impression you get is that he's running this weird cult where not everybody is like a true believer. Everybody's sort of under his thumb. Like the cop, you get this implication that like the cop is being paid off or something. But I got the vibe.
He's a real
of like,
cop, as they say.
Yeah, I got the vibe of like, okay, he's running this town, but they're not all happy with him. He's a maniac, so he's sort of, everybody has like their own dirt on him, or
I know,
like
it's just,
their own.
Just be really interesting. Wouldn't you like to see a whole extended thing? I'm not saying that it should have been in the text. I'm saying that like the Cloverfield text. I would like to see, not to be a fucking broken record about this, I'd like to see like an ARG extended thing about it. I would disagree that they're Nazi-ish. They're the opposite of Nazi-ish. They're trying to preserve an endangered species, not eradicate an entire race of things.
I don't mean like their goal. I mean that feeling of like we're in Hitler's bunker and everything's falling apart. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And everybody's sort of.
I don't think everyone's German. I think
no, probably
most
not.
of them. I think they're in that part of the Alps where it's like he's German. The woman at the front desk is French.
Yeah.
The cop, I don't know what he is, and the guy seems like a Swede, the cop, the other cop.
Right. There is we didn't mention there's another cop who basically this happened to his wife who died, and he's helping Hunter Schafer. But then he turns, which is what I like too, is that
oh god, the ending is so good.
The ending is a shootout, which is one of those things you didn't think would happen, but it's her
world's worst shootout. World's worst aimed shootout. Yeah.
You learn basically, so Hunter Schafer's arc is that she hates her sister. Then she learns that her sister is kind of this like under this microscope, like this like this subject, and is not like, not necessarily favored, but just like heavily studied. And then she hears a message her sister sent to her mom, because what we learned is she's calling her dead mother all the time to like talk to her, to hear her voice, and her sister misunderstands and also calls her mom and basically says like, my sister clearly wants you to come. You should come. Like you see that the little girl cares about her, basically.
Not only that, but you see the little girl can hear, not just hear, but hear very well, because she says in the message, which she is having text transcribed somehow over this old looking voice machine, whatever, voice message thing, is that I hear my sister through my wall. She says she hears the message through the wall, so she can hear very well. In fact, that's how the Cuckoo can also put the little girl under the trance, which is the first time we see it happen, is Hunter Schafer's wearing headphones, and the little girl's ears begin twitching because she hears her mother calling for her. And so, like, she goes into a
biological mother. Yeah.
Biological mother. Which also weird, because the biological mother is not Asian, but the mother, like the stepmom, is Asian. And so that would have to imply.
Yeah, I think it uses their DNA or something, I assume. Yeah. And so, like, kind of the moral at the end is like they have to come together, essentially, is that they shouldn't be fighting each other. They should be fighting this larger system. Yeah. And they come together. But this other guy who basically clues in Hunter Schafer and says, like, your sister is not your sister. She's not a human. He wants to kill them all. And so she's like sort of in between, where she's like, no, fuck Stan Stevens, but also I want to protect my sister. So there's this great ending where on literally one side, Dan Stevens is trying to kill Hunter Schafer, and on the other side, this detective is trying to kill her sister.
And so they use
use each other like human shields after getting rid of the mother.
The mom. But there's also this great part where it's like, there's easy enough story to do there where it's like, oh, the sisters come together. But no, there's this opening kind of bit in the third act where she's killed the biological mother, like in this horrifying shot, like, because the mom keeps looping time and she's having to put on headphones. Eventually the cop just comes in and knocks over all these bookcases, and because the creature isn't like super strong, it just like goes over along with Hunter Schafer, topples her along with Hunter's been in another stack and they were kind of stalking each other. The woman, you realize, doesn't look that scary. We see it earlier when one of her offsprings has gotten to Hunter Schafer in a swimming pool. Hunter Schafer just gets wrecked in this movie, by the way. She is destroyed.
It's real like Ash in Evil Dead, where it's just like she's slowly, she gets her head banged up, she breaks her arm, she just gets slowly more and more fucked up, which I love.
Gory as fuck. Like she got these head stitches that are just like giant gaping wound. Yeah, her arm is shattered. So she's incapacitated. She can't drive. So, like, the idea of, like, how she's going to get out of there is just this constant question. She works at the front desk of the hotel because they couldn't figure out what to do with her. Now that she showed up, she wasn't supposed to be there. Dan Stevens puts her in charge of the hotel, but says, don't go out late, because that's when the cuckoos come to mate. So he's like, close up early, go home. And eventually, when she fucks that up and tries to steal money and leave with a lesbian who I guess shows up at this fertility resort that everyone knows about by herself.
this real cool chick. Cool chick shows up and acts real cool. They make out. And like the implication, I like the implication here, because she's obviously like a little older and Hunter Schafer isn't even 18, but like they're probably a few years apart. But it's like this older woman who just doesn't give a fuck. But you get this implication because,
she's supposed to be a surrogate mom, because she says that she's there by herself for now, which I thought implied that someone was paying her to get pregnant. Oh,
maybe. Her backstory is also, you don't know quite a lot, but she gets the vibe from Hunter Schafer that's just like, you need to get the fuck out of here. She understands that much. And so she doesn't really know the context. She's just like, yeah, man, I'll help you get the fuck out of here.
I mean, just the moment she meets her, she's like, you want to go to Paris? Like, that's the woman's opening bit, and the Hunter Schafer just goes, yes.
Yeah.
And then they're just like, they're on their way. But unfortunately, a cuckoo gets in their way.
Yep.
Again, I don't know why that would happen unless you're saying that like that woman was already there to get impregnated, because Hunter Schafer is not. The reveal is that Hunter Schafer was never in the cuckoo's like eye line. It wasn't trying to get to her in any particular fashion. It's trying to get to the brood that it's building.
Yeah, there's a lot of stuff in this. I see what you mean, which is that there's a lot of stuff in this that feels like convenient plot points that could easily be explained by a little more exposition. Because I got the implication that this creature is just also kind of a hunter, and it's just going around, and it just kind of runs around fucking shit up at night, and that's why Dan Stevens was just like, don't go out at night. No one go out at night. This thing runs around, and you don't fully know what it wants at all times, you know?
Is it trying to impregnate? Like, does it try to impregnate that front desk lady who's dating the actual, like the cop who works for Dan Stevens? Like,
it definitely tries to impregnate her when they go to the honeymoon suite. I think the idea is that after 10, it's just kind of like trying to impregnate anyone. And Dan Stevens is trying to aim it at specific people that are in the honeymoon suite, basically.
Right. Basically couples who have shown up needing fertility treatments, and then I guess after 5 or 6 years, the idea is that you have to bring the child back and maybe live on the resort if you want to, like, because the child has to be near its biological mother in order to get its powers.
Right.
So like it can't cuckoo, it can only be like a mute child until you bring it back to the resort, and it can be near its mom, and its mom will start vibrating her throat in this very cool manner that at first you don't know what you're looking at. It's just like going, ah.
Yeah.
And then, like, suddenly time starts to dilate from the person. Even the baby cuckoo is, like, POV.
Again, I'm doing a lot of the movie's work for it. I just think, like, my thoughts was, like, whatever Dan Stevens is doing is fairly new. Like, he hasn't really perfected this, and he's kind of a maniac.
It's a step one. Again,
yeah.
We talked about this with Oddity, but this really feels like an SCP, like the Secure, Contain, Protect wiki like world, where it's just like, these people don't know what they're doing. They might have certain devices. They might have like cool like future tech, like basically the CIA for Godzilla Monarch thing. They're doing that, but for like supernatural entities. But Dan Stevens is just like, he's like his own outpost and has no clue what he's doing. Almost like Until Dawn, if you've played that video game.
No, but I've heard things about it. Yeah.
It's really good. That has another creature you don't know that well. And some guy who's trying to like be like, I'm containing it. Like, I've got it under control. Here's the exposition. But you know, this movie doesn't do an exposition dump ever. Yeah.
And again, I personally like that, but I can see how it kind of, like, you obviously love lore. And I can see if you like, there's a happy medium, I'm sure, where this movie could say a little more. For me, I'm like, I inferred a lot based on like Dan Stevens' performance, you know, where I'm like, all right, this guy is out of his mind. And so like, I can accept the idea that what he's doing isn't like a perfect plan, you know, that he's sort of like, he's still kind of jazzing this, and it's probably still new. There's implications that the first scene is another one of these successful implants at home.
Oh, so what? Like, I missed that part. Oh, so
right. Okay. So you did miss Okay,
yeah.
So remember the girl in the pool who's not the same one.
Oh, okay, yeah.
So the opening it's really well done. You should watch it again for the opening.
Damn it!
It's a really cool shot of these like this staircase, and there's shadows, and you hear fighting, but it's in German and there's no subtitles, and it cuts to a teenage girl's room, and she's like listening to them, but you don't see her face, and she starts twitching in this really weird way.
Oh my god!
And then she stands up, and then she just leaves. She escapes.
Okay.
And so that's who that girl was. The implication being that this is like the first version who's like teenage, and she gets away. And because she gets away, they keep talking about like the nest and like the idea that girl is going to come back. So I think what's happening is the mother is like trying to find another one because of that.
Oh,
there's like a snag in their plan.
Oh, that makes a lot more sense. Because I was like, why does the second cuckoo like appear if they're like have this? Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. does put it back together a little bit.
I forgot that there was an opening scene that you missed. Yeah.
Is that why the mom is also in the bathroom stall of wherever it seems like they're on their way to somewhere and they stop in a bathroom, and that's where I walked in, and Hunter Schafer calls her mom, I believe, in the bathroom stall, and then when you leave,
there's someone in there.
Well, it's the Cuckoo because of the shoes, shoes that she has on, right?
Yeah. So I think so. Go
ahead.
Oh no, the idea is also because the husband and wife are fighting in the beginning. The implication really seems to be that the guys are hiding this from their wives too, and there's like just some fucked up weird process where there is a follow up, but it seems like it's like they have to sort of trick their wives to be like, remember that place we went on our honeymoon? Let's go back there. Let's go see that.
And then what happens? Do you lose the kid? Or I guess the guy said he was going to stay at the resort. That's why he says your parents belong here, because they want to be near the dad would ostensibly want to stay near the child, but the child would also need to be near the Cuckoo.
Yeah, and maybe there's implications that he does eventually. They do eventually like tell their wives like, here's what's happening.
Yeah.
Maybe that's why they're fighting in the opening scene.
Yeah.
But like. That's all to say that it is weird that, like, at the end, because basically at the end she gets away with her sister, runs back into that woman who was going to bring her to Paris, and they all leave together. It does feel a little weird that the mom is left out of that, because she also does seem like a victim. Like, they make her out to be kind of cold, but I thought the implication, again, was that, like, we all have to kind of unite against these fucking freaks who are trying to like do weird baby stuff with us.
Well, yeah, but she thinks that they're there for the health of the daughter who keeps having these seizures. We realize the seizures, because the daughter's mute, so she's like, obviously, maybe the dad said, we have to bring him back to this resort where we got pregnant. Because again, she would know that she was infertile. She would have met Dan Stevens because for some reason, he's in their honeymoon photo.
Yeah.
Which is fucking weird. Right. So she knows that he helped out somehow, and then he's like, we have to go back and help build the resort, but also it's where there's a very specialized hospital for our mute daughter's maybe genetic issues. And then when they get there, the daughter starts having seizures, which gives them the cover of getting to put the daughter into like a, like hospital safe room, kind of thing. Yeah.
Yeah. And so it's just unclear how much she knows. I guess like in the movie, it's like they just have to get the fuck out of there. So it's like
they never get the mom. She's still there.
But it did feel like there was sort of like a kind of a loose thread there, because her dad also, the implication is that her dad gives a shit.
Of course. Yeah.
He just also is doing this other thing.
Well, it's kind of like the cop who gave a shit. He obviously wanted to get his wife pregnant, but then the thing was his wife choked on her own vomit while he went to go chase because I guess Dan Stevens doesn't give them the whole picture before he has this process happen.
I think, so that's why it's unclear to me where it's like, I think sometimes it's just a new couple who honeymoons there, and that's it. And he's just like, yeah, take the honeymoon suite. And I don't think he even tells them what's happening.
I thought there was one line where the guy said, we went here because it was like a fertility. My wife was trying to get pregnant.
Right. You're right. Maybe it's that. And then he doesn't tell them, the fucking weird bird lady is going to do it for you.
Or like the time loop. He also has oh my God, this guy, we haven't gotten into him yet, but the former cop, we find out he's a disgraced cop who left because his, wife choked on her own vomit after getting cuckooed, which I guess is literally just the outside version of what it looks like to do a time loop. Like we see it near the end where both Dan Stevens and the guy go into it, where you just kind of like sit in place and you're like doing that. Yeah. Sorry, that was like offensive. But they're like in a weird trance. And I guess sometimes if you're a woman and you have certain hormones, it makes you sick and makes you vomit. It doesn't make the guys vomit. They say the guys have a hypnotic effect. The cuckoo has a hypnotic effect on men. But for women, it makes them like visibly vomit a lot. And we see women around the resort vomiting all the time. And that's because the cuckoo is kind of doing its version of a mating call on them. So his wife choked on her own vomit while he was out chasing the cuckoo. So he's got this vendetta now where he's out to kill all cuckoos. Which is really cool. I mean, we never find out what happened to her friend at the hotel front desk. Like, did that woman die? Like
It doesn't seem like she did, but it sounds like it was close or something, Yeah, like she was gonna be impregnated, and then he shoots at her. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, and also he has a gun. Oh my God, this cop has this gun. I don't know what it is. Is it like a gun with a silencer on it, or
he puts it in a pillowcase to silence it, and then when he shoots it, it lights on fire. Yeah.
So he's just running around the woods with this pillow on fire on his hand. It's awesome looking.
Yeah, that was a shot from the trailer that I remember seeing multiple times in the trailer and going like, I can't wait to find out what that is. It's him running around the house. And since the shot's far, all the feathers are flying off of him. But in the trailer, you see it for a second. You're like, what the fuck was that?
Well, because he's experiencing it as a time loop. So like we're seeing it as we're seeing it as if we are in the time loop, which is why the feathers are going kind of like backwards and like re-looping. That's why it looks so cool, because from that moment, we're like in a time loop watching the feathers do the thing. Mm-hmm. I think that's why that looks like a little bit like weird, because
it's also just out of context in the trailer. Yeah. It just looks like I'm like, is that a bird person? What the fuck was that? Like this, yeah.
Maybe they aren't even fast. No, they would have to be fast because she's wearing Hunter Schafer.
Hard to tell.
Well, Hunter Schafer's wearing headphones when she's biking, so that thing is
just
really
that
fast.
Thing's booking it. It seems as fast as a human in that scene. Like it's just going, because she sees it and then starts riding a little faster.
Oh, right.
And
that's
so
true.
like I think it's just as fast as like an animal or a human, like not extremely fast.
I think it would have to be a little faster than the human, because it gets to the hospital around the same time she does, but then she hits her head, so the headphones fall off. A lot of this is headphone based. If you have something in your ears, you can be immune to the time loop hypnosis. But if you don't,
make her into music, basically. She's like a teen who's moody and into music, which works, I thought. Like the fact teenagers are always on their headphones. It's like, all right, got it,
So looking into this a little bit more, it does look, because this movie reminded me a lot of The Endless. If you haven't seen Resolution, the other Moorhead Benson
just because
movie,
of the time loop element, or
that's a big part of it. But also because there is a secondary, like The Endless stands alone as its own thing. But if you've seen Resolution, their first film, it's actually a companion piece, and there's like characters that come back from Resolution. And when I watched The Endless, I had no idea it was the same directors. I'd watched Resolution one night late on Ambien, and I was just like, wait, I feel like I'm watching like this movie that I kind of half remembered. I was like, what the fuck is this? But those characters had experienced the monster from The Endless in a very different fashion, and that is also a very cool idea of like what the monster is in that world, like the creature. But it gives you a different context. And so The Endless, while it makes sense as a whole movie, there's still a lot of questions you might have at the end, where Resolution kind of fleshes out those questions from the perspective of these other characters who are like doing this completely other thing and experience the monster as something else. And it looks like maybe that's what this director's doing, because his first two films feel like they're in the same universe. They all take place in like a resort, like in like, the Alpines, somewhere really far away. They all involve like the experience of an entity or a supernatural thing. One's called Luz, and it's like non-linear. It looks really cool. And the other, the literal title of it is, let me go back. I think the literal title of it is something about like the something at Alpine, the events of Mr. Yamato's Alpine Resistance. Yeah.
I don't know if it's the same universe, but I'm looking at the trailer for Luz, his other film, and it's clearly very similar DNA, like you're saying. I'm looking at it, and I think it's sort of, I gotta see this. It's the timeless element, where you can't quite take, which is that's a long-standing horror tradition. Like Evil Dead was specifically made that way too.
It's also trying to be very much what's it called? It follows, like that idea that like it's maybe both timeless and there's modern tech.
Yeah, there's a lot of the timeless stuff, and then this idea of like kind of a facility or this one I guess is a police station, but it looks very similar. And then there's like an entity that seemingly is obsessed or following. I like, that was the thing, is watching this trailer for Cuckoo, I kind of assumed it was going to be more supernatural. And that was kind of, it's always a delight to me when something that seems supernatural turns out to not be. It just has, because the idea of the hypnotism in this, where you watch the trailer and she like appears behind her and shit, I was like,
sci-fi. Yeah, you think it's like super more sci-fi. Yeah. I know what you mean. Like where I was like, oh my God, there's time looping. And I'm like, oh no, it's just like hypnosis.
Or like,
it's
is it a demon or something? Its eyes are glowing and like, why is it moving like that? And it's like, no, it's just an animal. I really like that idea.
In his short film, The Events at Mr. Yamamoto's Alpine Residence, literally the synopsis is a woman struggles with boredom while a mysterious organization is struggling to be efficient. I think these movies all take place in the same like area. Like this is the same organization.
I don't know if that's a conscious thing. I think it's someone perfecting an idea. You know what I mean? Like
But it's from different perspectives. Like this woman works at the organization. This in a short. And the second one, she's at the like a police precinct that they have there. And this one is from the perspective of a girl who's like working there or whose family takes her there to build up the resort. I would put money on this all being like one kind of like big universities playing around with, where they're just different. Like you just see it from different perspectives.
I guess it's a matter of semantics for me, which is like, I think you're right that it's all kind of a universe in this guy's head, but I think it's still like perfecting on ideas and themes.
Yeah.
But I'm sure you could definitely tie them all together, like in terms of canon, unless he explicitly says otherwise,
I think he probably shot at the same place. I'm not sure how many places that this guy has to film at, how many resorts there are for this dude. But like one was his senior thesis film. One is a short film. So again, like you're right, these are not like finished whole products, but like Luz, his feature film, debuted at the Berlin International Film Festival, which is like kind of a big one. And then this one premiered at like the 74th Berlin International Film Festival. So clearly he's building up like an indie circuit thing, at least for Berlin. And if they were the same movie, if it was just like a remake, like if it was Michael Haneke's Funny Game, where he's just remaking it with the bigger cast, like, or Evil Dead, I feel like that wouldn't both be premiered at the film festival. This has to be kind of like corresponding films, I think. Yeah. Yeah, I'm really excited about that, though, because, like, even if it's just playing around with the same ideas, but it happens to be shot in the same location and, like, it's the same thing, to me, that's a shared universe. It's just, that's what I consider a shared universe.
Yeah, that's what I mean. It's all around definition, too, which is like, like Sam Raimi puts the same car in every movie he makes. Does that make it a shared universe, or does that just mean it's an Easter egg Or Bruce Campbell, where it's like you can think up a version where they all are linked, or a lot of them are linked. Because you look at like Drag Me to Hell and The Evil Dead, you're like, those feel like they take place definitely in the same universe. Because the demons are kind of the same in that. There's the same weird amount of cruelty in how the demons function.
Doctor Strange. I think Doctor Strange does take place in the Evil Dead universe, because those Deadite things are like actual Deadites, like the things that are coming after him. But that actually poses a very good thought experiment. Right? So Evil Dead and Evil Dead 2, I don't think are in a cinematic universe, because they are just the same movie remade. So they don't share a universe. It's just the remake version of the first movie.
Technically, Evil Dead 2, the halfway point is where Evil Dead 1 ends. But yeah, I know
it's
what
not
you're
like,
saying.
but it's not like it's not from a different perspective where characters are like, oh, this is what happened that night. Like Army of Darkness kind of shows you which timeline is the correct timeline that they're going with going forward, and one was just perfecting on the idea of the first movie with a different genre. Whereas like Resolution and Endless are one kind of universe which being told from different perspectives. Like it's just different people experiencing it differently.
Right.
Which I guess is why I'm just, you're right, it's semantics, but that's how I'm defining the cinematic universe. It's like they had one idea on like a Google Drive, and they're just approaching it from different ways, and it's the same monster, same entity, it functions the same way.
I don't think it's the same monster though, from what I'm seeing from Luz and the others, but it's like,
maybe.
Luz, it sounds like it's a demon of some sort, like it's actually a supernatural thing. Again, I need to see it to know.
Maybe they just think it is, right? Because like you probably don't. They say it's very non-linear, so maybe it's like you never get a clear sense of what it is. In this movie, you clarify, because this movie made it seem like it was a vampire.
Right.
Vampire
was a really good bet for this, because Dan Stevens seems like he's lead vampire, and he has like a thrall, and we're seeing the thrall or something like that.
Yeah.
I'd love to see this person make a vampire movie now that you mention it.
Oh, yeah. Oh, my God.
I am.
Yeah, they're great.
Really excited for their next stuff, because in terms of the scariness, like, there are shots in this that are freaky. Like, I think
scary.
The trailer kind of ruined that bicycle shot, but I know why they included it. That's such a good fucking shot.
Oh, God. Near the end, where she's like the very last scene where the cuckoo is coming after the girl and her eyes are all red. Her.
Yeah.
Yeah, I wasn't a huge fan of the look of when they're starting to cuckoo, which is like their face turns black, and it's got that like, if you get bit in a zombie movie and your arm starts to blacken, that's the effect. That's not as cool to me, but like the fact that these are basically humans, like they're basically humans, yeah.
Yeah, I really like freaky. That like her jaw opens a little too wide. Not ridiculously wide, but wide enough to be freaky. Like he knew to do a little bit of subtlety, although I wouldn't call it subtle. Yeah,
Well,
I like that.
reproduction, that alien style reproduction where it's like she's not even holding up an egg. She like goes inside of herself and pulls out like goo. And then this woman's whoever's being hypnotized starts scratching their legs, and there's this body horror element. Then they start vomiting.
Yeah,
like it's just like what the fuck is going on? Like there's a Cronenberg kind of element that we're just not even seeing because we never know if we're seeing it from the perspective of someone being cuckooed or if we're like watching the actual events play out.
Yeah.
It's very cool.
This great little uncanny valley of it all too, of this creature. Because the implication too is like the offspring are more human than the main mother, probably.
Oh yeah, he says that. He says that they're becoming stronger and they're becoming better at they're becoming like better at being the mimics. So like her sister is basically human. She understands stuff. She can hear stuff. And at the end, the sister, because she's in proximity of her biological mother, learns how to cuckoo. But you get the sense she doesn't have to.
Right. You get the sense that her sister's like a superhero now.
Yeah.
Like she's like, she's has a superpower. Like, but like, and so like there's an element there. Yeah. About, again, like the main mother, like, is she like this because of Dan Stevens? Because we didn't mention he also has a little flute he can use to control them.
Yeah, we did mention a couple things here. There's a couple elements here that are just so fun, and you're just like, I want to explore this world a little bit more. Like everyone,
it's such a weird little world. Yeah,
the fact the cops in on it, and but he hasn't told his girlfriend who works at the front desk. They just like he's just like, let's get out of this honeymoon suite. And the moment he does, he starts doing these actions that are like kind of like he almost like knows he's about to be cuckooed, so he starts doing very specific physical actions. Like he picks up the glasses and he puts them on top of the
right. Yeah, he
like
knows it's happening too. Yeah, I got that. Yeah, where he can like every time he does the loop, you can tell he's more distressed because he knows he's stuck in the loop and he doesn't quite know what to do about it. Yeah.
There's just really cool elements. Also, the idea at the end where like there's no good guy. Like the person trying to preserve the cuckoos. You could argue Dan Stevens is just like a bad people person, but he's trying to do a good thing, which is a preservationist. He's trying to keep this endangered species alive by...
But he's doing it in a horrifying way, yeah.
Well, if you weren't Hunter Schafer, would it be horrifying? Except for maybe the moms, but like they wanted a kid, so...
I mean, I think what he's doing is pretty horrifying for the moms, right? Like, the implication seems to be that he tells them like, I'll handle your fertility issues, doesn't tell them how, and then has this happen instead of, I mean, it's definitely a violation. But
there's also the woman like who works at the hospital. Like the two women, they don't seem like bad people, like necessarily. Like they're trying to like be again, like maybe just from a different perspective. If it wasn't Dan Stevens, if it was like a nicer guy who was a little bit more open about the process,
if he was up front, if he went to the parents and said, "Here's what we're gonna do," like sure, but like he's a maniac. And again, the implication is also that like he's doing something to these creatures too. That's I think the overall theme is it's these guys kind of just saying this is what's best for you to these women, and that's feels like the theme throughout, including even the guy who you think is good at first, the cop, where it's like he also has his vision of what this needs to be, and then she sort of at the end realizes like it's not their fault, like it's not the like again they're animals, this offspring, they don't know what they are, they don't know what's going on.
Or they might have some. The one girl seems like kind of in it. The one from the beginning, she like holds Hunter Schafer's head, and she's like she almost seems like a more evolved version. So Dan Stevens has to be like, focus, like get your shit together.
Yeah, she's like clearly being controlled in some way, like conditioned, and so you realize like it's mostly Dan Stevens that is causing the horror of.
But otherwise they go extinct. And like, do we want this thing to go? Like, do we want her sister not to exist? I guess it's that kind of question, right? Where it's like, maybe he just becomes more on board. Maybe he should have done this differently. But like, he's trying to keep a species of incredible kind of human mutants. So imagine like Magneto or like Professor X. He's trying to keep this species of like metahumans alive. And people wouldn't willingly do it. So he's trying to find a way to...
So your team Dan Stevens? Is that what you're going on record?
No,
saying?
I just near the end where they're both like the world's worst shots. Like these two guys have these giant like fucking like I think Dan Stevens has what like a giant rifle.
He has like an assault rifle, maybe an AK. I couldn't tell.
Yeah, I mean he just hates Hunter Schafer, and what I appreciate about this movie is it doesn't try to Rosemary's Baby you, which is that Hunter Schafer is never gaslit. She cannot be convinced that something normal is happening.
I really enjoy that too, because she's just a teenager, and like there's
a lesbian teenager.
Yeah, there's one point. There's only one point where I was like, oh, why would you do that? Where Dan Stevens goes to her and says, okay, you want to leave? Because she keeps wanting to leave. She's just like, I'm fucking out. Like,
and he kind of wants her to, because he needs her out of the way. They reveal that he doesn't, that she's not the main focus of attraction. At the end, he goes, you little brat, like you're in the way of what I want to do.
And there's a point where he's like, all right, you want to leave? I'll drive you to the bus station. Leave them a note. And the moment he's like, leave them a note, I'm like, that's evidence. You're like,
she knows it. She knows it.
She might, yeah.
She takes the photo of Dan Stevens with her parents, like in her pocket with her, which is
right. You're right. So she might be like knowing, like, in order to be captured, it gets me closer to what's going on. Because she also seems kind of curious about what's going on. It's sort of like she's going in between, like at that point, she also is more invested in wanting to help her sister. Because the first time she leaves, she's like, "Fuck this, I'm out." Yeah. I don't want to deal with this. She also doesn't think something terrible is happening. She just thinks that like somebody is fucking with me and my parents don't care, you know?
She thinks she's the main character. It's a main character syndrome problem where she thinks she's the main character, but actually her sister, who's been in the hospital with these seizures, is their only focus. So Dan Stevens at first, he's like, you can work here, just like stay away from being out at night. And she just doesn't obey him.
Yeah, so she's a teenager.
And the second time she doesn't obey him either. And so he's like, fine, you don't work here anymore. Just stay at home. And she doesn't obey him. So he's like, you're in the fucking way. Just leave. Or if you can't leave, I think because she saw the cop, because the cop happened to be there with a gun against his head when they walked into Dan Stevens' house. I believe that he was going to give her money and just drive her to the airport. But
then
she saw the
cop. Team Stevens, huh?
No,
he drives her specifically to go see the cop. Like he's bringing her there to kill her. I'm almost
really?
Yeah. But the idea, because he says leave a note, and he's doing that so that later he can say, I guess she ran away. He's setting up killing her in that moment.
Knowing that she would have to be cuckooed, like, because he has her cuckooed. He kind of like uses her.
Remember, he smothers her.
He smothers her, but only after he cuckoos her. Like he takes her. I agree with you, but I
don't
also
think he's fully cuckooing her. I think the idea is that because those creatures hypnotizes you to be immobile, he uses it to incapacitate people he also just wants to kill or dispose of. Like he's just using the creature in that moment as a weapon, essentially.
With this very cool effect where the windows can come down. These giant plate glass windows, so you're surrounded on all sides by these, like, you know, almost like modern brutalist.
It's a pool. I love that it's a pool because it's clear that it's like this was a resort and it was like sort of like.
Or they're building it, yeah, right?
Yeah, turned into more of a lab, like because he's just using this pool as like a holding cell.
Yeah, I mean, like, well, they say, like, the dad's there to help build the resort. Have you seen Infinity Pool, that Britain?
Oh, I've seen Infinity Pool, yeah.
This gave me some vibes of Infinity Pool in the sense that one of the couples there, the Mia Goth husband, was there to build the Infinity Pools, you know? He was there to, like, build it, and, like, they just decided to say, it kind of gave me vibes of that, where it's like, we don't really have to explain Yorgos Lanthimos, the lobster style, how everything at this weirdo resort works. I guess I just was a little bit more curious, Dan Stevens just wants her gone, it feels like, you know? But then she knows too much. Yeah.
Yeah, I think so too. I think he would have happily let her run away at a certain point, for sure. Because I think, she's... I mean, I get where Hunter Schafer's character is coming from, because she's like big sibling syndrome, and then also like she's attacked and her parents don't care, and like she was dragged to this resort even though she's 17 and wants to have a life, and like he sells the house she grows up with. Like the idea is like her dad clearly cares more about this other daughter than her.
I thought he was protecting her. Like, he's like, get the fuck out. I thought the dad was like,
I think he still loves her, but I think there's this idea of like, you know, he's clearly going along with all this stuff, right? And he's putting this daughter, her needs below his needs, and like he you know, again, he dragged her to this weird resort that it's like there's nothing to do, and like all she can do is work at this place, and it's like, he's absolutely also been kind of strong-armed into it. The implications that I think he's under the control of Dan Stevens as well, but like it you know, like the dad is, again, like he clearly loves her, but he's like torn, it seems like.
Well, I think he fucked up. I think not telling Dan Stevens she was coming to the resort. He just brings her along because the mom has died. Therefore, he has to take his other daughter with him to a dangerous situation that he is like moving him and his wife and his daughter into. He knows like kind of what's up. So like the fact that she's there, his coldness can be explained by the fact that like he's like, you're not supposed to be here. This is dangerous for you.
Oh yeah, like, that too. I think that he's definitely flustered by that. But he's also just, he starts, he doesn't explain anything to her. He when she's in the hospital, he's just like, fucking run away if you want to, but you have to go on your bike. Like,
she doesn't know how to drive, to be fair. She can't drive.
Yeah. I think he's fed up with her as a teenager, but like considering the situation he's put her in, he shouldn't be. You know what I mean? Like,
well, it's also it's a narrator issue because she doesn't believe, like, even though we are told that her mom dies and it's very clear her mother has died, Dan Stevens has to press the issue by bringing a box of her mother's belongings to the house and to be like, your mom's fucking dead, kid. Like,
right.
Which is, again, only something you'd want to do if you want to push the kid away and have her run away.
I think you're right that I think he wants her to run away, but I think, here's what it is. I think he wants her to run away at first, but I think once she teams up with the cop and starts digging around, he kind of realizes like she's now a problem. She's a liability and she knows too much. And that's why I think he's the time he brings her to the pool, I think he's absolutely planning on killing her.
Where does he bring her first? He brings her somewhere before he brings her to the pool, to the house. He says, we're going to go somewhere and then we're going to go to my house to get the money. So where does he bring her first?
I think that's the first place he brings her. I think he drives her, talks about the cuckoo, and then drives her to the house and brings her in and shows her the cop.
Maybe
in that moment.
I thought he took her somewhere else, and he's like 2 stops, 1 stop here. Maybe it's the hospital, and then the second stop somewhere else, because there's like a bunch of different little areas. I think that like he's pissed about the cop thing, that this cop has come back and inserted himself into this investigation, and then told Hunter Schafer, under false pretenses that he's a cop investigating it, told her the story of what turns out to be him and his wife, of this guy. He pretends like he's investigating the murder of a third person. Like,
he has his own motivations, and their motivations are lightly aligned at first because she wants to know what's going on.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So the end result here is that like you get this really cool standoff. And again, like the only quibble I have with the ending is at the moment where they were like doing the, holding each other to act as human shields, the daughter or the sister then is like, cover your ears. She does the cover your ears motion and she cuckoos them. So you just watch it finally from the outside, what it looks like when the guys are cuckooed, which is just like they go limp and whatever. Yeah. So they put like their guns are down. The moment that she closes her mouth, they should have just shot. Like, but instead they wait a beat, even though they realize the girls aren't there anymore, and then they just shoot each other, which feels like that's to neither of their advantages. Like, if the goal is to either shoot Hunter Schafer so she doesn't get out and tell, or the goal is to shoot this creature.
You'd think they'd leave the room and run after.
Yeah, their goal is in each other. That. Yeah,
I think they had to clean it. They needed to dispose of these people in a clean way, and they wanted to wrap it up. Again, like it does feel like this movie has a few like little conveniences, because it's like they're trying to do the John Woo thing where these two people hate each other. They're pointing guns and they think, okay, maybe if I shoot them real quick. But you're right, is that more likely they would both try to run for, I don't know, it's hard because
if they were hypnotized though, right, they should both come out of it thinking that they are still in that exact second after it happened. So they should have both shot. I'm just saying, like, the moment they got out of the trance, they should have like just shot the guns thinking that they were. Well, they still
have the human shield issue, right? Because they were blocking each other right before she cuckoos them.
Right. I mean, I just think that, you're right. I just like the moment would be like, if you were doing this in a different way, you would just do like, they come out of the trance and then they just shoot the guns. Like, it's just
right.
Like
or they're right about to shoot the guns and then she does it. Yeah, I think there's some stuff like that could have been cleaner.
It's just like a moment. It's just a little niggle where I'm like, oh, they wait a beat and they see each other and they notice the girls aren't in the room and they're like, fuck it. Like, we are the world's worst shots. Can't tell you how many times they shoot at each other and the girls and miss them completely.
See,
like,
that to me is, as someone who shot guns before, that to me checks out, because pistols and assault rifles are horribly hard to shoot.
One of them's a cop.
That's true. He should be better at it. You're right. Yeah, Dan Stevens, I'm like, who knows, like, he doesn't really come across in this movie as someone who like shoots a lot of guns. But you're right, the cop should probably be better.
There's actually a great moment. I do want to go back to it because it comes to the emotional resonance of why I think this movie works, just like on a fundamental level, which is
right.
The cuckoo's there. So you see the cuckoo. She gets her sister out, but the cuckoo comes after them, and Hunter Schafer has her earphones in, and she holds a knife up, and she's like telling the sister to come to her, and she's like, "Stay with me. I'm going to protect you."
The sister doesn't see the knife, and she doesn't see
the knife, but the mom sees this, and the mom's kind of staying away and like realizing that she can't have an effect on Hunter Schafer. But then at one point, the sister looks up and realizes that even though Hunter Schafer's pantomiming like "I'll hurt the girl" because she's trying to save the girl, the sister, who knows that Hunter Schafer hates her, only perceives it as "I'm about to be stabbed," so she throws her the headphones come off.
I liked that a lot because because you forgot at that moment, because Hunter Schafer at that point is trying to protect her sister. She's forgiven her, but the sister doesn't know that. All she knows is my big sister hates me this whole fucking time.
Yeah, now there's a knife against my head, and I don't know where my parents are.
And she's scared, and she doesn't really know what's going on. She sees the dead bodies. She's like, yeah.
So the sister has to do did you notice what it was? She had to do the bear, like, "I'm sorry." Like, just like the sign language moment for "I'm sorry." She has to explain, because like at one point she tries to get the sister back. The sister's not going to go with her. Like, because she hasn't earned it.
She has to unhook her broken arm and has to go through the pain of signing to her sister. I liked that.
Yeah, that was really good, especially because her sister can obviously hear. Her sister is mute, not deaf.
Right.
She heard through the wall.
It's her sort of saying, "I'm going to speak your language to you in this moment."
It was beautiful.
There is like a through line about that, I think, because the first time she does that is when her sister's listening to music and they're like, "Don't do that." And I didn't even realize why. The doctor says she can't do that and it's going to hurt her seizures. The actual reason why is she can't do that because she won't hear her mother, her biological mother. Mm-hmm. And then Hunter Schafer is like, "Let her listen to music," and signs to her. That's cool. It looks cool. So like whenever she signs to her, it's basically her showing like a respect for her sister,
and that she knows sign language
instead of just speaking to her sister. And so there's a whole
That's
like
really
symbolism
cool,
of the sign language. Yeah.
Yeah, because like she doesn't have to, but she's learned sign language. Obviously, she's learned sign language, which you find out at the end that she knows fluently, or not fluently, but she's saying, "My mom heard the message," and the girl signs back, "Is she coming to visit?" Because that's what she said on her voicemail. "Your daughter really misses you." Not understanding that the mother's dead.
Yeah.
Like Hunter Schafer's mother's dead. She goes, "Is she coming to visit?" And Hunter Schafer, it is really beautiful. She's like, "No, but she wants you to know, like, thank you." And then she puts out her arm again, and the kid trusts her finally. But it's a beautiful kind of vulnerability in that moment. That's how she has to win back her trust. Is hurting herself by signing, even though it's just a gesture, a literal gesture. You know.
I like that too. I really liked the arc between her and her sister throughout.
Yeah. Feel bad for that mom, though. The non-biological mom, like the surrogate. She was, last time we see her, she's like, "I feel sick." And then we just don't see her.
Yeah, it's sort of like that question of like, how much did she know? I get when they leave, they just need to get out of there. Like, it would be, I get why they wouldn't be like, "We have to go find mom." But you'd think the little girl would care more.
Yeah. Cute little Deus Ex Machina that her girlfriend lived. Like, we see a little thing of that, and I almost wish they had cut it out, that we see that the girlfriend
is in the hospital. Is
in the hospital. I wish they'd cut that out, so at the very end we just see her next to the car, because otherwise how would Hunter Schafer and the sister get out? Hilarious moment when Hunter Schafer tries to open the hospital door and she can't.
Oh yeah.
Like, she thinks it's locked, so she's like, "Ugh," and she starts walking back towards the front desk, and then the other sister just pushes open the other door.
Yeah, that was great.
Cute little moment. But then we see like how they're gonna get out. This one's so injured, but her girlfriend like lived, and she's just like,
there's a lot of conveniences in this.
I like that. Yeah, that was cute though.
Oh, I liked it too. Again, I sort of accept that stuff in a movie that's weird and unique enough that I'm like, yeah, I mean, coincidences happen. Like, but like, also, it is all very convenient that she got out of the hospital the exact time that she's leaving. And there's also this feeling of like that hospital, like, okay, so they actually also just treat people. Does everybody know? Who knows in this hospital? It seems like it's just part of the hospital.
Why is it an actual resort? Like, why is it an actual why is it an actual hotel that people are just coming in and out of? Like, when it's also next to a nature. I mean, there's a lot here, but I also think
and you're like they were shooting at each other. How many are there? Other cops here? Who did anybody hear this stuff happen? There's a lot of questions.
You know what I realized? The cuckoos aren't dangerous. They're just really scary looking. They never kill anybody.
Yeah, they're animals. Again, they're just doing a thing.
But they never hurt anybody.
No,
like
they
they
don't.
impregnate them and you can die from your own vomit, which is your own fault, honestly. But like they don't hurt people. Stevens hurts people.
They're forcingly impregnating people. That is a form of hurt, but I know what you mean, which is that they're not trying to kill anybody, and they're just sort of doing their nature of what they're doing.
And the only time people die is like incidentally by choking on their own vomit. Like what I'm saying is she saves that woman from the car. You think she's killing her, but she doesn't. She just takes her out of the car.
Right.
And when she's reaching for the woman, she's not trying to, I don't think she's trying to kill her.
Yeah, the part where she puts the knife, what I liked about that is it shows a humanity all of a sudden where the animal is not going to attack because she's like, no, you're threatening my young. I mean, it's just showing that there's like, again, that they're not like monsters. I mean, I think that's part of the point because it's leading up into her accepting her sister, which is like, they're not monsters. They're the product of their environment, and you can condition them to be monsters, certainly, but they're essentially they're not even animals because they have more, they're animals the way we're all animals, I guess.
I think I think the older generation, so the mom, we see, the reason Dan Stevens is putting her in a wig and all this stuff is because she doesn't have any hair, which, so what? But, like, she is more animalistic. I don't think she has the same level of, like, I'm a human cognitively that, like, you know, she is more animalistic than, and he's kind of just dressing her up in, like, human clothing, like she's E.T.
Yeah.
Like, she's got the big eyes, whatever. But
he's trying to make them something they aren't.
Yeah, but because they're being raised, because they're being raised as humans and they're being put in human bodies, they are becoming, he says, more human-like. They're developing stronger powers, and they also are more human. Like, their cognitive abilities are more
they're evolving.
Human. Yeah, which is like, again, so they don't hurt people and they're evolving. Like, and the cuckoo's only thing is they're just like trying to have people raise their kids. Is there really a problem here? If Dan Stevens wasn't such a psychopath?
The forced pregnancy is a problem still.
But if it's a fertility clinic, if it's a fertility clinic.
Yeah, but you're not signing up to be, forced impregnation while you're under in a random room.
You're not signing up unless you are. So I'm saying if it wasn't Dan Stevens and this is what they were told and they sign a waiver.
Oh, if there was consent, consent is always the issue, right? So like if there was consent, if the women consented to this, you could in theory create a facility where you're like, this is what we're going to do. I don't think a lot of people would agree to it because they'd be like, yeah, your kid is going to be like some sort of weird super animal thing. That's not really your kid that has like superpowers. And you have to live nearby.
You have to relocate for the rest of your life so the mom could be, or maybe it's just the mom needs to be near it for like a little bit of time and then the kid develop powers and they let you on your way. But like the mom needs to be near it.
I think there's an implication there that, I mean, I assume it functions a lot like birds, and I don't know how birds function.
I'm like Googling cuckoos.
Yeah. I guess what it comes down to with this movie is that, like, I like a movie that doesn't say a lot and sort of asks a lot of questions about, like we don't quite know what are these creatures exactly like. We get glimpses of their humanity or their, the fact that they're not necessarily good or bad. And I really like that about this movie. I like all the little kind of loose threads and the questions it asks and like this bigger idea it builds. I think that what might not groove with audiences is that it also is a very complicated story where there's a lot of moving pieces, where a lot of things happen where you're like, wait, so like you said, it's a resort for anybody? Like, how do they control it? How do they control who goes in the honeymoon suite? How do they like keep the guests not out at night?
Yes.
Like, there's a lot of questions to it that I think if you start pulling on those threads, it might make less and less sense. Or like, it's like, in theory, it could have been explained at some point.
So I think that there's two things you can do in movies, especially if it's your first one. You can tell a horror like character, like you can do a monster that everyone knows, but do it from a different perspective. So it's like really unique and individual. Like, so you don't realize it's that kind of monster until the end. And then you're like, oh, so it does obey the laws of vampirism, or like it is sort of a werewolf thing. We just didn't realize it because the perspective and the narrative was so like disjointed or nonlinear. Or you can do a very like original monster, like It Follows, but you have to set up the guidelines. Like you can't do high concept and nonlinear. That's very hard to pull off. Like the movie,
you have to strip it way down. The beauty of It Follows is we don't know everything, but we know it's going to follow you. Like we don't know, like in It Follows, it's like, can we kill it? They don't really know. And that's good. I think it's good not to know everything, but I like when it's like, you know the rules of the horror where you're like, okay, it's going to follow you. It gets passed through sex and it'll seemingly never stop until you pass it to someone else. Got it.
Right.
And it's a very stripped down story because it's not like, okay, there's this facility and they're running it and they're making these creatures. No, it's just like, we don't know where it came from. It's just here and it's just some kids and they just have to deal with the problem.
Yeah, there's like the exposition issue, which I know like is like an annoying part of every movie. It's you found it pretty annoying in Long Legs, and I did too, where it's like sometimes you don't need everything spelled out, but in order to understand the functions and the rules of which like these characters will have to live and operate under, we kind of either need it to be the devil you know, or like some brand new thing, in which case we are going to need a part where there is some exposition and someone's just laying out the rules like a video game. Like
I don't think I don't know if they were fully going for that type of movie either, though. I think they were going into more, because this is another like horror genre, which is like a cult, where it's like you slowly start learning about this weird world that you've been thrown in, right? That it's like she's isolated at this resort, has to go escape, and you slowly learn like I think of the VHS cult short. Where it's like you don't need to know much. You're just like, okay, this is some fucked up, wild Satanism shit. And you get the broad strokes and you're just like, I don't know what this is. I just know you got to get the fuck out of here. And I think that's more what they were going for, which is like, this is all just madness. You get like flavors of like you get sort of an idea. You're on the edges of what this bigger thing is. But all you really need to know is she needs to get the fuck out of here. Yeah. And I think that's what they're more going for.
Well, unlike The Void or like Empty Man or something, it's not like, or like any of these other movies, it's not a cult. And that is a very important differentiation. It is a scientific, environmentalist, like a preservationist group, which it's not a religion. It's not like there's
I think it's a little bit of a cult though, like again, Dan Stevens, how he's running it. He's running it
like a cult. Well, yes, it is a compound that's far away from everyone. But I'm saying, like, he might just have to do that as a function of the cuckoos needing to live in the forest and not being like he's a preservationist. And I think really when you view it from that lens, he's helping an endangered species and he's just doing it very shittily. Like, it does make it a different motivation and therefore like a different how they function. Like the woman who's there, who's like the head of the research facility, is not there because she believes in Satan or trying to summon an ancient Cthulhu god. She's there because she has her own reasons, but it's a scientific, it's bred out of scientific and like a preservationist sort of instinct.
You also kind of don't know who's telling who what, meaning that like that woman working at the facility, she might think these women are volunteering. She might think like, oh, everybody, there's totally consent. So yeah, it is like, you don't quite know, like, I mean, or she could know exactly what kind of terrible shit she's a part of.
She's keeping the diary, or she's keeping something secret,
right? Like so it seems like she's figured it out. Like maybe she was hired. Like again, it seems like there's a whole story there where like she realized that what he's doing is terrible or something like that.
I think that's I think that's the short that he made about the resort, which is from the perspective of somebody who works.
I can see that, yeah.
Yeah, so like I'm really excited to check that out. Like I just bought the Cloverfield DVD just because I realized that there was a special feature.
Cloverfield.
That was like the first ARG, and I'm not saying this is one. I'm just saying I like, you know me. But at this point, you guys know me.
I think you look for them even if there isn't one. But I do also think Cloverfield's a good example of another trope that's done so loudly that it's annoying. Whereas if the Endless and Benson Moorhead, where if you don't call attention to it, you just have a cinematic universe that you're just sort of dabbling with or existing in. That's way better than when they're like, it's another Cloverfield movie, and it's a movie that has nothing to do with anything. It's like, you don't have to shout out, this is all one universe. You can just sort of let it all exist in a universe, too.
And it has to do with the director's intention versus the marketing team's intention, right?
Yeah.
Like, Cloverfield was very much this huge universe, this huge, like, ARG element. Lost had that too, but it was all function kind of a marketing team making all this stuff up. So, like, it doesn't deliver on the lore promise. Longlegs, on the other hand, is still continuing to release stuff on, like, their secret ARG site. You still need these passwords. And they are very much, like, Oz Perkins, you can tell, is very heavily involved because there's more Twin Peaks stuff. There's more like music stuff. Like it's all the lore is getting built up from it. And I think that's a little bit different than even saying the cinematic universes. Like Benson and Moorhead have a Google Drive file they've kept since 2011 that has the entire universe mapped out of their movies and how they all relate. And like, we just don't need to see it.
It starts with the creators. Like Cloverfield was so lazy that they took movies that were never intended to be Cloverfield movies, slapped the word Cloverfield on them, and hastily rewrote them. Yeah, so like, I think it is part of the intention of the creators, where it's like, if this is something they want, but if they're like, Cloverfield felt like they were just trying to do a mystery box for the sake of doing a mystery box, you know?
But one of the best ARGs, Halo 2, also I think had like that IMBs was the first one, like I think it was called IMBs, like the, you know, where the story itself
What's
that's getting told.
IMB?
I Love Bees, was that what it's called? It was an ARG that like was coming out to promote Halo 2, but it didn't reveal itself as that. It revealed itself like it was just a sentient AI program that people were finding like the trailheads for. And like, I'm not being crazy, guys. Like, you can look these up. These are very famous marketing techniques. They did one for Dark Knight. Remember, like the I Am Harvey Dent stuff and like the Joker stuff. You could follow the QR codes.
They used to do this shit all the time. I mean, Blair Witch. They used to do all these elaborate marketing. This I thought had great marketing just because of just the trailer alone. It's the right amount of like, you watch the trailer, you're like, what the fuck is this? And you have to see it just to figure out what the fuck you're seeing in the trailer, which I loved.
Again, like the difference between this and Longlegs is Longlegs hyped up its marketing so much that people who were following the ARG, following the game, figuring out the ciphers, finding the website, cracking it open, felt very disappointed in the actual movie because on first glance they were like, this movie didn't deliver on the promise of this larger world building exercise that we've all been.
I just think that's a mistake. I
agree.
Yeah, I think it's. I don't know. It's silly to want a horror. Again, the watchers. That's what happens when a movie tries to crack open and show you every little fucking thing and try to world build. And it's like, you've forgotten to be a movie.
M. Night's done this. I forget which one, but he tried to do this. Oh, even with Trap, there's that Lady J album you can listen to where it's just sort of like, you're trying to get people immersed in the world by getting them invested by having all the stuff, but you forget to be like, well, the narrative's not going to pay off because the medium doesn't lend itself to a gameplay that like an ARG does. Like alternate reality game, it means that you are a participant. You get to like help the narrative move forward. That's not going to happen in a movie or a TV show. Like things won't change based on your decision making or puzzle solving skills. Yeah.
Right. I just think they're two different beasts. Like, I don't know. And like, ultimately, I'm judging these movies just on the movie itself and what it gave me.
And let's be clear, cinematic universes being connected from one director is different from like the ARG stuff. That's just like a side element. But I'm just saying that in terms of expanded world building.
Yeah, like you said, it's a marketing. It's ultimately a marketing gimmick.
But that's different than like Prometheus being related to Blade Runner. You know, like that's just one visionary director's like, you know, either Easter eggs or whatever.
I was about to say, I file that under Easter eggs usually, where it's where it's like, well, I'm not saying it isn't true that the things are connected. It's just that it doesn't matter. Where it's like, we're just connecting the things in subtle little ways for the fans. Like, I like that shit a lot. That's like, that's what, like, Marvel, it's like, the problem with Marvel is you have to do all this work to follow Marvel. Like, if you watch
don't mean anything. They don't mean anything. Like, it doesn't enhance your knowledge. It just makes you prove that you know the knowledge. Whereas, like, if something's connected, like, things need to stand up on their own. Every piece of, like, you know, art needs to stand up by itself. And then if it turns out that there's an extra layer of comprehension you can get from following this director's other works, that's great. Yeah. And that enhances your experience. But if they don't stand up on their own as art, like, as, you know,
Cloverfield, again, Cloverfield is one where it's like, what did this movie mean? You'll have to read this webpage. And I'm like, no, I'm not going to do that. You need to make the movie make sense. Yeah.
Yep, exactly.
100%. Yeah.
Stand up by yourself, art.
But I think this is meant to stand up by itself in the way that it's supposed to be somewhat disorienting, which again, I like. I really like. I'm a big fan of stripped down exposition, the practice of like, how little can we tell you before you go, okay, got it. And I felt like at the end of this movie, I wasn't that confused. Again, I think there's like conveniences where it's like, oh, it's convenient that, you know, the car, shows up in front of the car and it crashes, and then that woman happens to heal exactly in the amount of time it takes.
What is a movie?
Although you could imply that she didn't heal, like maybe she woke up and everything was chaos and she was like, I'm getting out of here.
I think I think the
Oh, you think
Cuckoo
they
pulled her.
kept her?
The Cuckoo just pulled her out. We see that she's okay the day after because she's asking about. We see a brief shot of her asking about Hunter Schafer's character.
But she's clearly been injured.
Yeah, well,
She
she was
has,
injured in a car accident, but not by the Cuckoo.
Oh, that's what I mean. But
Yeah.
it's convenient that she recovers from her injuries right when Hunter Schafer needs to leave. You know what I mean?
It's convenient that Hunter Schafer's alive. She should fucking be dead. Not by anyone's intention, just because she gets so fucking battered in this movie. It's horrifying. But no, I like this. I think that, it's the difference between It Follows and if you've seen the director's follow-up film, Under the Silver Lake.
Oh, yeah.
Under the Silver Lake, it doesn't... You leave that movie being like, did I miss something? And it's because you did. There's a lot of hidden ciphers in it and clues and all this sort of stuff. But it's not a satisfying movie watching experience. It's fun.
Oh, man, I love that movie.
I love that movie too.
See, I guess if it's weird, I'll forgive a lot. And so and I like weird in a way I haven't seen. Again, with this movie, this creature, I was like, this is just something I haven't seen before. Presented in a really interesting way, and I love that.
It's Fire Walk with Me. It's Fire Walk with Me. If you haven't seen Twin Peaks, it's Fire Walk with Me. It holds. I think people were disappointed in Fire Walk with Me because it came out as a prequel to Twin Peaks, and people were like, "Oh, now it's going to solve all the questions we had about the show." But I saw Fire Walk with Me before I saw Twin Peaks, and I was like, "This is the best movie." I was like, "This is the best movie I've ever seen," because it is a really intense, psychological Lacanian portrait of incest and child abuse and all these different issues that are really intense to deal with, but done in this very dreamlike psychology way that is I think that holds up as a piece of art, regardless of the context that exists outside of it.
Yeah. I mean, this one, I don't even think there's much context outside of it. I'm not judging this as part of a larger universe because it isn't. As far as I know, the director has presented this as its own story, and it's its own self-contained story for sure.
Yes, absolutely.
It's implying a bigger world that I think a lot of movies will do that I enjoy, where it's I don't really need to know everything about this facility. I get enough because it's all from the perspective of this one person. I know as much that she knows, and
it's
that's
not the Mummy. It's not the Mummy. They're not trying to build I guess what I see what you're saying about semantics. This does make it difficult. They're not trying to build a universal horror roster of things. It's just
it's the point of the movie is it's confusing because it's from the perspective of someone who doesn't really know. It's not exclusively from perspective. I think there's a few scenes that aren't, but it's mostly we know what the protagonist knows, and ultimately the protagonist doesn't know that much.
And they keep you knowing less than the protagonist knows because the protagonist doesn't experience the time loops all the time, but we do. So when the little girl is experiencing the first time loop and you're like, what the fuck is happening? Hunter Schafer isn't experiencing it like that. Yeah. It's so cool. And look, I want to see his other two movies before definitively saying these are not all existing in the same universe, but like you said, it doesn't matter because this holds up. It's not the Mummy. They're not going to do the Cuckoo will return in 2026. It's not that.
I don't think they'll do a sequel to this. That would be a wild thing to do a sequel to.
No, but I'd like his next movie to take place in a world where this isn't inconceivable that this also happens. This exists.
Oh yeah, I mean that's the thing is I think that's just another way of saying you really like his style. Because I like the weirdness of this movie. I like any movie that just doesn't go in directions you think or is just I don't know. It's just this bizarre little world, and I want to see more stories told from this perspective for sure. I'm very excited for what this director has done next. I'm fucking Longlegs, Oddity, and Cuckoo just out in the same month.
Oh God! And then Heretic coming out. That looks so fucking
Which one?
Good. Heretic with Hugh Grant.
Oh, Heretic, yeah.
Oh, Heretic, sorry, yeah.
And then fucking Alien Romulus is coming out soon. I'm just like, this is the fucking year for horror.
It's so good, and every year it feels like it gets better.
Yeah.
As because these movies are breaking through, and they don't cost that much to make, and we're finally giving this is what I talked about with Skinamarink. Remember, I called this all back at Skinamarink Day, which is
probably
now we're because I said the Backrooms was probably gonna be the next one picked up as in
and it is
YouTube. Yeah, and that kid was 17. This is how we're gonna get movies that aren't that high budget that studios can actually afford to invest in and not think of as a huge money thing, a money suck, you have to make the Marvel money, because you can just acquire it and distribute it, and it can just be somebody's home video. It's what's brilliant about Blair Witch. It's what's brilliant about a lot of things. These are micro budget movies that you can then turn into something. Yeah.
It's wild to me that horror continues to be the most innovative genre with this stuff. And I guess I get it where it's like, you can't exactly do a superhero movie like this. You can't exactly do, you could do a comedy like.
It's horror and anime, I would say. Those two things overlap, but like anime is also, it's way more expensive. So you can't just be a cheap anime person, but like that also is innovative in a way that's like, oh God, 10 years ago, you would not get Attack on Titan.
Right.
You would not get all these the Junji Ito.
Yeah, like, you mean like conceptually, innovative.
Bringing the weirdest concepts that are standalone IPs that are like.
Yeah, for sure.
What the fuck are you? What the fuck is this? Benson Moorhead, all this stuff where it's like, how'd you get away with making this? And I think it's smart of Marvel to bring in Benson and Moorhead because that's like somebody who understands how to build a multiverse involving time loops.
I liked their season of Loki. Whenever that stuff happens with Marvel, I only get sad because I'm like, that's more time they spend not making their own stuff.
I mean,
if that makes sense.
Yeah, I mean, like the same thing with Andor, though, where I'm like, Star Wars is better for it. Is Tony Gilroy and Beau Willimon?
Yeah.
I mean, probably with their pockets lined, but like, you know.
Oh, yeah, I'm happy they're getting paid. And then I hope they go off and make more weird shit, you know?
I mean, Beau Willimon got Severance Season 2, the most expensive TV show of all time.
Yes.
So,
I don't know why it's that expensive, but I guess we'll find out.
I mean, it takes place in an office building. I cannot believe that
those office walls don't come cheap, apparently. Yeah,
I don't know. I think it's because Bo and Ben Stiller both had to work on it along with the original writer in the strike. I think it was the creative team that cost the most. Because there's no fucking way that Severance can cost more than Game of Thrones.
We're gonna find out The Rock's in it or something. Like I just like that to me is like. That's one of those things. I know we're totally off topic now, but that's one of those things where I'm like, my goodness, that like this is. It's kind of I don't know whether or not you like Severance or not. That feels indicative of a bigger problem now, where it's like no wonder shit's not making any money. You know?
Yeah, Apple. I don't know what you're doing, Apple, but you know what? Better that than give it to Disney. Like better that than like an original idea that's so weird and fucking.
Yeah.
You know. Yeah, I'd rather that money be given to Disney or Apple, but the fact is Apple's just making very stupid decisions in terms of what they're financing, and then they don't promote it.
They can afford it, you know? They're like, listen, we have all this fucking money. We made a giant building that was the shape of a circle. We have nothing
Bezos
going
is the same.
on.
Bezos is the same, and then Warner Brothers, meanwhile, is getting rid of Cartoon Network. However, what are they investing in? 10 new anime series from Warner Brothers Japan. So they are like... So the animated stuff is happening. It's just happening all in their Warner Brothers Japan studios. Right. You know, if you haven't watched Suicide Squad, what's it called? Azuke?
Oh, I'm watching it. We're doing a Tom and Jeff Watch Batman on it.
Yeah, we might not have that much Batgirl, but we do have 2 different Harley Quinn animated series spin-off things going on right now. Yeah, it's amazing.
I guess we can wrap this up.
Yeah.
I'd say my general vibe on Cuckoo is I really liked it. I don't know. I'm just vibing with it.
Yeah.
And I think I agree with what you were saying. Like, I can see why people would be frustrated with it, but I wasn't.
Like The Guest.
I liked it through and through.
I think
I love The Guest.
I think it's Dan Stevens. Why is it every time I see Dan Stevens in a movie, I'm like, well, can we focus more on that character? Like Abigail, The Guest. Like, even Kong versus Stand-Up Lizard, I was just like, what the... Can we just... I need some more information about
movie,
him. Yeah, I need more information about this guy and where his accent originated from.
I think, well, here's the thing. Dan Stevens, you don't want to become a Brad Pitt, right? You want him to be a weird character actor. I don't want him. Yeah, like I want him to make a living. I want him to be comfortable, but I don't want him to ever like suddenly have to play like normal guy, you know?
Well, he won't ever because he doesn't look like a good guy.
Yeah.
He looks like a villain, so he's always going to play malicious villains. Legion, if you haven't seen Legion, is the best Marvel show actually that's ever been put out. This is the X-Men show because it's an X-Men show.
Yeah,
it's about David, like the Professor X's son, and he plays such a fine line between like guy that's good and guy that's crazy and actual fucking serial killer like dominator god thing. And it's really good. So, guys, check out Legion. It's about the guy who made Fargo.
Check out Dan Stevens. Everybody look into Dan Stevens. Drew, thank you so much.
Thank you for having me on. I got off topic.
I mean, I often get off topic. It's fine. I don't know. I don't know if anybody listens to a podcast and goes like, oh, come on, get back on topic. You know what I mean?
They're like, Dave, review Trap.
I gotta see Trap. Where can people at the end of this? Where can people find you? To your plugs.
I'm gonna do my plugs. You can sometimes find me on the Gamefully Unemployed Friday Night Hangs, where we just watched In Dreams.
Hell yeah!
I feel like that's where I'm doing my best work, honestly.
Robert Downey Jr. In Dreams, Annette Bening. Let's go.
Guys, you have to sign up. I often do this, but like you have to sign up for Gamefully Unemployed's Patreon because it is the funnest thing you can do on a Friday night. So I'll just plug that, and as well as Video Drew across all social media and Passion Fruit. Go check it out. We are support creators, so that Gamefully Unemployed plug is totally on brand.
Aw, thank you. Yeah, that's patreon.com/gamefullyunemployed. You can also go to gamefullyunemployed.com to see our merch. I keep saying this, but even if you don't like us, we have merch for like Batman fans and X-Files fans.
It's so good.
Yeah, so you should absolutely check that out. And what else? Dan Stevens, Cloverfield.
Just like, can we just get Starly Klein to make a t-shirt based on something that we've talked about recently, like a long leg shirt?
Long legs. Yeah. I don't know what the long leg shirt would be. We could brainstorm that.
Korn? Is it going to be Korn long legs?
What?
The lead singer of Korn, wasn't it like Korn Unplugged or what was it? No, it was like, yeah, it was Korn Unplugged that you guys were talking about.
Oh God. Are you referencing something in a podcast?
Yes. That's what you guys.
Oh, fugue state in a podcast. I will not remember what is said today.
The MTV Unplugged.
10 minutes.
MTV Unplugged. I guess the guest was talking about MTV Unplugged's Korn and how Korn is actually a good band. Isn't it? Am I crazy? Like, this is how they're.
No, that might have happened. Again, fugue state.
That's how I do everything. Fugue state.
Yeah.
Guys, yay!
Hey, listen, our music is produced by Chris Corlew. You can find him on twitter.com as the Corlew or go to shipwreckedsailor.bandcamp.com. Our channel artwork is produced by Michael Vincent Bramley. For more of his work, go to mvbramley.art. Our episode artwork is by Justin Brown, available on Twitter as Justin T. Brown or at artnessbyjustinbrown.com. And finally, additional artwork is by Starlene Hodge. You can find her work at starlenearts.com or on Twitter as StarleneX. Cool. Goodbye.